And the viewers, I'm sure viewers
Dengba
would,
Tobiga,
I'm sure viewers would make a judgment out of
this line.
program today.
Please forgive us. Having listened to all our panelists so far,
no, I've not been listening to fully. I've not made my point.
What do you also have to say,
that,
particularly about what is likely to give and what we are likely to benefit?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and this has been a great discussion. I think that there's no doubt that we can see across the board that the current economic situation is significantly impacting the lives of everyone, especially for me, extended family, immediate and extended family, and this conversation about what's happening and who's at fault, I think, is relative. Both Bright and Theo did an amazing job at giving the historical perspective, as well as some of the challenges going forward with going to the IMF. But I think that if we were to really be honest with ourselves, looking at a situation where the e-levy, which was brought on, which seems like instantaneously due to the currency kind of collapsing and being shut out from debt markets, the first thing that happened was the government came up with the e-levy, right, and went to the most vulnerable, which were business owners and small retail traders that had gone to mobile money during the pandemic to support themselves and continue to transact business. It's an interesting thing, and from a person who originates debt and structures debt and looks at securitizations and sees what other debt originators are looking at in terms of the ability of an entity to repay the debt, execution is crucial. So if you can have as many plans and ideas about generating revenue, if you're unable to execute on that or demonstrate that you're unable to execute on that over time, you're going to get shut out from the markets. Interest rates become higher. You can always find somebody who's willing to lend you more money at a higher rate and let you hang yourself. But in terms of where we're at now, we need real strategies that are viable and support the debt and have a debt sustainability outcome going forward. One of the things that I think Bright mentioned was the tri-commodity support in the economy. I think that's very important to recognize. Commodities are cyclical, they go up and down in price. And if we're solely relying on that, then we're going to run into challenges whenever there's a big fluctuation in price with servicing the debts. And the IMF, one of their debt sustainability, one of their aspects of debt sustainability is the focus on how reliant an economy is on the underlying or commodities that supports its revenue. So I think there's a lot of things and a lot of challenges that need to be looked at. I think that going to the IMF, in a lot of ways is a reflection in the mirror. We get a perspective from a institution that has depth of knowledge across many economies on how debt structuring and economies should be operating. And we can see, or we'll get the feedback on what it means to us and what we can change. I think that, if you were to look at timing, I agree with John that it's going to be a little while with some challenges. I've made that message just from, my understanding, to family and friends, that I think it's going to be a tough road ahead for at least a couple to 2+ years, because the challenges that are out there are significant and they're structural.
From your reading, what many commentators would like to say is that it does appear that the investments that, Ghana appears to be doing are rather investments that are looking forward to votes politically rather than will bring returns and help the country to repay its debt. Are you able to comment on that?
I don't want to put a political spin on things. I think it's interesting, from a person who originates debt. Part of the confidence would also be maybe in those that would help execute, right? So in other words, if the populace is losing confidence in government's ability to execute on their plans or stand by what they say or be able to orchestrate things, certain agendas, especially flagship agendas, then that's seen by debtors as a risk, especially when it comes to the term that a certain government and then maybe their flagship programs may be in office if there's no confidence. So, it's definitely a risk and one that I think the current government should consider.
Does it look to you from your examination of our circumstance that we are likely to win ourselves of the IMF anytime soon?
I think that is how forthcoming. All of that is dependent, right? I mean, the IMF is an institution that looks at a myriad of debt situations and all the dynamics that go into them, right? And so for whether or not, I think transparency is key. I think recognition is key of the problems that are out there. If somebody goes to borrow money and they don't recognize their own revenue cash flows or the underlying fundamentals or the challenge that they had that got them into the situation that they're in, it's tough for a creditor to not associate a certain higher interest rate or structure that takes that into account. So I think that the IMF being open to help with a resolution is really in the hands of the current administration.
The head of the institution had announced that about 100 countries were seeking sort of help from the IMF. Is it accurate to say that all of them are in the kind of circumstance that Ghana is approaching the IMF?
That I don't know. I think CSJ, which is Center for Social Justice, we're heavily focused on the most vulnerable and social economic infrastructure spending, so across health, education, and whatnot. So we've put together a report which also dovetails to the report that both Theo and Bright had presented. And I think that it'd be worth also taking a look at for viewers that are interested to see some of the underlying data points, across the board.
So the CSJ, what's the main point that you seek to drive home with your statement?
So our statement is that we are interested in a fair and sociable and equitable economic prosperity. So we, in situations, much like I mentioned with the e-levy, much like I mentioned with, free SHS, excuse me. We're very interested in the long-term socioeconomic infrastructural aspects of an economy that allow it to prosper over the long term, and that prosperity is equitably shared.
Thank you.